Good morning, Ramanan. Uh,
Good morning, Ram.
thank you very much, Mr. Ramanan, for accepting my invitation for this interview on art of sharing life experiences happening through writing. Expressing oneself in any form is an art, and you do that wonderfully. And I surely learned when I was writing my book, Focus 5, a practical guide for career growth. So before we get on to the topic, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. K S Ramanan. He's an independent learning and development consultant, facilitator, and a coach with over 30 years of work experience. An independent learning and development facilitator and a coach at corporate entities and social sector organizations, he engaged in consulting, coaching, and facilitation. In addition, for social sector organization and startup, he helps these organizations build capabilities around people and process to take them to scale. In his last corporate role, he was a global learning leader at Ernst and Young. Prior to that, he worked in organizations such as Times of India, ENI, American Express, and Oracle. Over this year, he has been writing. His writing has been centered around perspective that he has gathered during various travel at home and abroad, generally through life, which is another kind of a travel. He has published his first e-book, 31 Ways to Reclaim Your Happiness, and he also wrote another book, a book with quotes called Insights for Life. You can visit his website, www.ksramanan.com, and subscribe to the life sharing experiences he shares frequently. So I'm Ramakrishnan, business direction designer and a coach, enabling business owners to be profitable and scalable. We do this through my organization, Ginsource India Private Limited. We bring in 350 plus man years of collective corporate experience providing services in the areas of process excellence, people development, technology implementation, innovation, knowledge management, business finance, and administration and facilities. To know more about us, write to us on info@gensource.in. Now we get on to the interview with Ramanan on art of sharing life experiences and happening through writing. So now I have been a regular reader of all your writing, even though I don't say that I'm reading everything, but I read many of your writing, and I've seen you sharing your life experiences through writing. How did you get this interest? Would you like to share?
So I was a very voracious reader, right from childhood, and I used to love the language and also understand how words could be, used to, evoke emotions in people, and how drama could be created just with words. So it used to always fascinate me, and over time I started thinking about writing. So right from school and college I've been writing for the newspapers, which came later, but then college magazines and all that I've always written. And the pleasure of having a thought and then translating that into a way in which you write something, and then sending out into the world and having people look at it and give you feedback, it's very addictive. So I realized that you start writing, and then you also, because it's a skill which you develop with practice, and you realize that what you wrote say 5 years back and how you write today, you are yourself able to see a big difference in the way it's developed. So it's a very addictive hobby, and it's a very harmless hobby. You sit down and you like I say, how to soar in the skies just sitting in your study. So imagination, just sit there and you're in your own world. So it's a very nice hobby, in my opinion, and I wish more people could write and entertain the world.
I understand. This is also I experienced when I went for Facebook Live. My first two, the 10th Facebook Live was different. Similarly, the interview, I'm sure, first interview to this one, I'm finding a difference. That's what when you start doing it, always practice. So one of the things is, if someone wants to start writing like you, are there any steps you recommend them to follow, or what is that you suggest them to do? Many of them interested in wanting to express themselves. It is very clear and they want to do that.
So I would say that there are two parts to it. One is the creative side, which is really that you must be able to come up with thoughts, because so much has already been written in the world. How do you create a perspective of yourself? And every perspective is so enriching and so valid. So how do you develop ideas, and how do you develop thoughts, and how do you translate that into writing is one element. The other is really project management. So once you decide that you're to write, how do you make sure that you put a plan in place, you have a timeline, you develop the idea, and then you have to finally understand what the message is going to be for that piece of writing. You work on it, and I'm a person, because I love writing so much, I read my almost my before finally putting it out into the world. I read it at least more than a dozen times, my writing, because every time you write, you get a sense that every time you read your writing, you get a sense that maybe something could change here, something could change there, because in your mind you have a message in your head actually, and then you are really comparing the writing to see whether it really is delivering that message or not. So one thing is about writing. So I write from I'm a fairly organized person. So during those days, when we never had smartphones, I would always have a spiral pad and a pen in my pocket. And I'm traveling, or I'm in a bus or something, or um, at a place meeting people or something, and an idea strikes me, I would always write it down, because I realize that the idea is just fleeting. It comes and just goes, and one must never lose that idea. So I would put that idea on that spiral pad, and that way, those used to be the triggers for my writing. So I will never lose an idea, to point that I'm so organized and planned that I would have that spiral pad next to my bed. So in the middle of the night, sometimes it occurs to me, and I just grab the pen, I write it down, because I don't want to lose that idea. And once the idea is there, then you can always develop that idea and write. And then, because you have got so many ideas, when you're flipping through the scroll pad, you can prioritize what makes sense at this point. Sometimes I write about a career, sometimes I write about leadership, sometimes I write about just travel. Food is a great idea, great topic for me. Travel is a great topic for me. I write about a lot of things, life experiences, small tidbits of life, and how one can get the maximum out of every experience, and how do you savor every experience in life. Is something is really I love that, and I realize that simple things, simple pleasures of life, how do you really stay anchored in that and get the maximum out of it. So because of your because you don't lose thoughts, and so now of course you have smartphones, you're always always you have this weapon in your hand. So I have a like a Google Keep or something, and every time there's an idea, I just jot it down. And then when I sit down to write, I'm thinking of what topic should I pick, and then form that idea, and imagine the message that I want to convey, and then start writing. And of course the project management side, which is the deadline, and make sure that you have especially in the social media, you have to be two things that they really talk about is consistency and authenticity. So how do you make sure that you're authentic, the way you can you really write from your heart, and then are you consistent, because the audience starts expecting writing at a particular frequency,
Right.
So are you catering to that? So I have a timetable, almost like a content timetable. And so that's the project management part. So it's basically a marriage between art and science in some form. So that's what I do. So
Yeah, definitely there is different commitment required, and also organize it and do it periodically and share your experience. And also many of them will have saying that whether it is right or wrong for them. I suggest that start putting it, which can be corrected for a period of time. And I'm also experiencing with my book, first book which I wrote. Now today when I read it, I'm just working on a second edition of that book. I'm going through a lot of changes. I wanted to bring in, you can bring in better product, part of it. That over a period of time, things become good. That's great.
Also, I
And
think as you evolve, your writing also evolves.
yes, yes, yes.
So, for example, I'm sure you have, when you wrote the book, you had perspectives, but after that, you have gained so much in your own life.
Yes, right.
I'm sure the same topic that you picked and wrote about looks very different to you based on your own life experiences.
Right.
So that's the whole, the enjoyment of writing, because writing also undergoes a change and an evolution. So as long as you keep it dynamic, and it's never cast in stone, you just keep writing. So
Right.
I
What you
keep
said,
writing. I'm always,
absolutely right. Yeah, adding
yeah,
to your experience, always content comes on its own.
yeah.
And I also know I want this book which you have given to me, Insight of Life, Insight for Life, a quote book. I would like, what is the significance of this? I just wanted you to just elaborate on. It is only full of quotes you have written this book.
Yeah. So the book, I have a copy here. So it is the, it's known as the 366 Insights for Life. So the genesis of this book really came when somebody, a known friend, in a casual conversation said that, you seem to be very good with one-liners. So people had told me about that before, but somehow that conversation stuck in me. And I said, maybe there is some truth in what he's saying. And I thought, and I had seen such books, books of quotes, and I've always been fascinated by quotes of, um, great leaders. So I said, why don't I start writing quotes? So it started with a simple target. I thought, and again, I opened up Google Keep and I started, writing it down. As and when it struck me, I started writing. The initial thought was that I'll write 31, which means that, one quote for a day in the month, but I very quickly realized that, I was actually, galloping on that journey. And within 3 or 4 days, I'd actually done 31. So I said, okay, so what do we do now? So then it came to, maybe I should talk about 100, and then slowly I realized that, as I was creating the quotes, I was realizing that, I was really enjoying that experience. And then I have a habit of setting up a fairly big target for myself, because that keeps me going. I really feel very charged, when I have a big target in my mind. So I said, why don't I create a quote, a quote for a day in the year, And initially I thought 365, but then I thought somebody will point out that what about the leap year, there are so many smart people in this world. Somebody's going to tell me that, what, if you create 365 quotes, what happens to the leap year? So I said, okay, let me cover that part also. So I created a 366 Insights for Life. And the book is created in such a way that, there are no dates. You don't have to flip it. You're not forced to flip it. If you like a quote, particular quote, you stay with the quote, so once the quotes were created, I then started imagining that maybe I should bring it out like a book. And I chose the desk diary, kind of a model, because people could keep it on their desk and they could flip it as and when they wanted. What it has done is that honestly, all these quotes are material for my writing. So in some form, when I created 366 Insights for Life, each of these quotes can become an article. So actually speaking, I've got 366, articles waiting. So then I started doing something like every quote has a story. And I started writing about stories behind these quotes, because the quotes were not just pulled out of thin air. They were actually either my own observations or my experiences or my aspirations. So they could fall in one of these three categories. And then I started writing about the quotes, and then some of that writing has actually gone to my website, and I also write on Medium. So so it actually, it's a lot of seeds for me, which I can, anytime I want, I can, convert that into writing. And because it's a book, it can be given away to people. A lot of people have bought it for themselves, and they also that's also become now a corporate gift. So people are also gifting these books especially around Diwali and the New Year time. This is a great corporate gift, I'm realizing. So I ship a lot of books it's fun, and you realize that what came up as just one conversation with a friend, how it has come to a point where it actually becomes something tangible. And I'm reminded of this thing that everything happens twice in life, once in the mind and once in reality. So this is a very great example of something that came up in a conversation, and finally it's taken a tangible shape where it is a real book which actually can be handed over to people.
Thank
So
you. Thank you for those insights. I'm sure it all. You started with the code. It has become 366 articles, and it become another book. We are all expecting from you, definitely. And yeah, I know you will say that all of them to share their experience. I wanted to tell why they should share. Each one to share their experience. Is it important? Why is it important to share experience?
yeah, so I realize that all of us have perspectives, and the same event
Mm,
is, we have different perspectives about the same event.
correct.
And I believe that our perspectives are extremely precious. One thing is about following somebody's perspective, and following it for life, and and I call it obedience, being obedient, read something or and just follow them, or hear something and just follow them. But I always have I have put a lot of premium on opinion. What is your own opinion in the matter? And for me, the opinion is extremely important, because that actually shows who you are. So for me, when you start expressing your opinion, uh, it actually tells people who you are, what you stand for, and it also gives a perspective about you. For example, Ram, when I read your book, the Focus 5 book, it tells me what do you think about certain aspects
Correct.
of life, right? And typically we always say that if much has been written about a lot of things, it doesn't matter, because if even in travel, I do a lot of travel writing, for example. And if I'm going to Agra and I look at Taj Mahal, my perspective when I look at Taj Mahal on that particular day, in a particular mood, will be very different from somebody else who has written about Taj Mahal.
Mm,
So I believe that every perspective is valid. So in a career, for example, even if you take the Corona situation right now,
correct.
my perspective of Corona is very different from maybe your perspective of Corona.
Right.
How people should cope with it, or how people should still remain hopeful and optimistic, could be my perspective. So I believe that when you share your stories, it tells something about you, and in some form you're actually, in my view, leaving a legacy behind of who you are. Otherwise we could just be reduced to a statistic. So in that sense, I believe that it's extremely important for us to share our perspectives, and it's finally the sum total of our perspectives that actually make up who we are. So to that extent, I consider it extremely important,
Yeah,
to share.
that's a valid input. Yeah,
Yeah.
another thoughts also, there are many coaches around now, and everyone thinks it's important to author a book. How important is for coaches to author a book? Is it your perspective on that? What do you think? Is coaches needs to have authored a book? It's very important.
That's I would say, that it's again sharing of perspectives.
Yeah,
So I'm not saying that you have to author a book, but when you write a book, or a book, or even you publish a video or something of that kind,
right.
what happens is uh, there is a certain sharing that happens,
Hmm.
and a book allows you the liberty of a lot of content. Nowadays, videos, you expect the video to end in, say, a minute, or or less, right? But a book has, you can really write about it, you can go in depth. So I would say that, uh, also, we must also realize that not everybody writes, not everybody can write, and not everybody writes, I'm saying. But if you can put your word out, whatever may be the medium, it could be a video, it could be a podcast, it could be a book. But I think what is important is that, is your perspective available to people at large? So in that sense, a book or any of such mediums really is very useful, because people get to see who you are, people get to know who you are, and it also opens up a channel of conversation. For me, my book has uh, opened up a channel of conversation with people, because people want to talk about a particular aspect, and then it opens up a conversation for me with them, and then I can have which converts into coaching in some form. In some form, it's mentoring. It's just sometimes just a conversation like what's happening right now, just a some kind of an interview I'm saying. But what happens is that you are so the book also helps you to and what I have also realized is when you write, it also you're also revalidating your own perspectives.
Correct. That's perfect.
Because thinking something is different from writing something, and when you realize that this writing is going out into the world, you also make sure that you're writing the right thing, you're standing for the right things in life, and then that's again a great opportunity for us to revalidate what we have been thinking, and how do we make sure that the writing is really available to the world. So I consider that to be if coaches can find some medium, certainly yes, but not everybody writes and not everybody can write, so that's fine also. Now people look at short form content, so it could be just a podcast, it could be just a video, and now
people use TikToks and other things.
yeah,
And
TikTok,
various mediums is there. Any medium you use it, convey your experience, share experience.
absolutely.
Always is a pleasure. It's very nice talking to you, Ramanan, and good insights on how I'm sure someone wants to share their thoughts and start writing and doing book or some kind of a sharing. I think they got a great insights from here. And thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.